What if instead of the intro to Torn Between Alphas, I just played dramatic flute music? I'm gonna record myself playing one of these days. Actual music and not just tones for bleeping myself. Torn Between Alphas, Chapter 40. So Xavier and Kelly finally start to get hot and heavy. Clothes start to come off. When Xavier starts to lick her milk button, she has to tell herself not to pass out, which, geez, girl, I know that is your first time in everything. Nip noops are sensitive, but if you're struggling not to pass out from somebody touching them, you should probably go see a doctor. Kelly randomly name drops a big name adult video website. You know the one I'm talking about. The big one. I don't know why the author felt the need to tell us that Kelly had watched those videos before, but here we are. And it had been more than 5 minutes since they last got into a fight, so now they have to fight about Kelly being nervous to give oral. She ends the argument by actually giving him oral. She stops after a moment and says foreplay wasn't the deal. At least Xavier has enough common sense to remind her that she doesn't want him to go in dry. However, they get fully undressed, but Xavier stops because she looks terrified. She tries to insist that everybody is scared the first time, but he pulls away regardless. As Kelly is leaving, they get into a fight over Kelly's body insecurity. That's tacky, even for Torn Between Alphas. Despite Xavier being into Kelly's body, it's obviously not helping. In fact, the words that he's saying about her stretch marks make Kelly angry, and the entire thing is like, read a room. Xavier finally gets tired of this mood, but he tries to leave and Kelly won't let him. She literally climbs on his back to prevent him from leaving, which, very mature. How old are you again? Because whatever age Kelly had been established, she sure acts like a 5-year-old. But as Xavier opens the door, Colton is randomly on the other side, if only to cause further drama because Kelly is still naked. He refuses to leave, stating that the sight of a naked woman was so interesting. Ugh. They then try to go to sleep, but Colton is still pounding on the door, apparently unable to read a room as his brother. Lola finally screams out from her own room to shut up, and we end the chapter on that note. And I'm appreciative that the story is finally getting to the good part after 40 freaking chapters, but I'm also worried that Xavier is going to continue to pull back at the last second, and this will be dragged out and they won't actually do it. Chapter 41. Kelly is awoken the next morning by Lola, which makes sense seeing as how she's kind of disappeared for the past several chapters. Granted, those chapters took place over the span of about 30 minutes, but still. Kelly tells Lola about what happened last night before Kelly goes downstairs where the brothers are. There she gets into yet another fight with Xavier. He eventually says that she can leave, but Kelly has to pick a fight over that because she's just that stupid. But at the same time, I kind of agree with her. He could have let her and Lola go at literally any time, so why was last night somehow different than any of the other times that they almost did it, but then stopped? But then they start fighting over... Oh, Lord. They fight over Xavier's apparent inability to get it up. I'm so done with this. But after a while, Xavier tells her to pack her things and they'll take them to the airport. But Kelly says no, that she wants to stay. I don't know what to even think anymore. I'm not familiar with Stockholm Syndrome cases, but this is probably a super terrible one. But before they can even argue about that, Colton comes in and he's brought company by way of some evil wolves. I can't. They all fight, but after a while, Kelly gets the sense that none of them is Colton's mate. Yeah, I follow literally none of this. And then Kelly faints, except that following the nip noop scene from the previous chapter, I'm going to go ahead and say what doesn't make Kelly faint. Chapter 42. A note from the future. I read through this once and then reread it because it's about as clear as mud. Upon going back to reread the entire thing for literally 1 ounce of clarity, I think that Jay is a guy, except that Jay's gender was literally never ever established. Not once. The narration goes from Colton's mate to, oh hey, it's Jay. I'm still of the opinion that literally anybody could have helped to clean up the giant dumpster fire that is this incoherent mess of a story. But skimming through the contents kind of confirms that I'm not the only one confused by what's going on in the story. Honestly, the comments are more concise than the actual freaking story, and that pisses me off more than anything. Your story should not be this freaking unclear. The female wolf uses a distraction for the other werewolves to get away. After they're gone, she shifts back. The brothers seem to know her and call her Jay. They talk about how she caused the car crash, despite the fact that the person who picked them up on the side of the road was a man. But you know, consistency is for squares, even just as proofreading your own work. I feel like it would be asking for way too much for the writer to have hired an editor. An editor would have fixed a billion and one spelling errors and various typos, as well as to, turn this dumpster fire into something more readable. And then they all need to stand around and talk about how Kelly refused to leave. This is the equivalent of those TV shows that have constant flashbacks to something that happened not even 5 minutes earlier in the same episode. And I just want to pause for a moment to talk about how Jay keeps saying that she's Colton's mate. And I'm stopping because remember that weird troll who was like, this is the bestest love story ever and you were wrong, and also a meanie poo-poo head? But she also says some stuff about Colton, so I was, under the impression that the two of them were going to be a thing. But apparently that person who commented didn't even know how the story went because, whoops, looks like that's probably not going to happen. Which only just cements further in my mind that the person was just some troll looking to stir up drama. Anyway, they want to kill Jay because reasons. I get that the idea of a mate is toxic, but at the same time, the writer could have written literally anything, but she actively chose to write about werewolves and mates and destiny and one true love. She doesn't get to give us all of that and then change her mind halfway through by having Colton not wanting any of it and deciding that murder is somehow better than being tied to some random chick from another pack. I mean, the murder business is pretty on brand for the brothers, but at the same time, decisions were made, and clearly there was some regret about the entire thing. Anyway, the boys and Jay kind of stand around for a long time and talk about pack stuff. It's even more boring and tedious than usual, and I follow literally none of it. Mainly because I've got better things to do than to read this stupid story. Mainly because the second that the point of view switches back to Kelly, she literally sums up everything that happened in a single sentence. Xavier and Lola were randomly grabbed by the enemy pack, I think? But 2 seconds later, Kelly is the one who was apparently grabbed. Like I said, I follow literally none of this. Either Xavier and Lola were grabbed, or Kelly was. But Jay is questioning Kelly about Colton, her mate. Kelly tells the girl everything, but she's kind of disappointed when Kelly tells her that Xavier doesn't give a hoot about her and probably won't come because he doesn't care. Another wolf comes into the room and tells Kelly that they kidnapped her because Xavier killed his sister, which, yep, that'll get Xavier's attention. Kidnap this random girl that he has zero emotional attachment towards. That'll teach him. Chapter 43. Kelly stares at the guy in shock before she laughs over the entire thing. She has to spell it out for him like he's 5. The dude bragged about having killed your sister. What makes you think that he gives a hoot about me? However, Kelly doesn't stop there. She intentionally antagonizes the man about the things Xavier had told her about killing the other werewolf, to the point where the brother now tries to kill Kelly. Like I said in earlier videos, the girl is now completely suicidal. But before it can get too far, another wolf stops the brother from hurting Kelly too much. Despite everything that she just said, they're still going to use her as leverage against Xavier. They tear her up, but Kelly is quick to escape. She also stabs somebody with a piece of broken chair. It doesn't matter, and I don't care. And damn, this chapter is really violent and dark. Like, this story has been dark with undercurrents of violence against women, what with Colton and Xavier threatening literal murder every other paragraph at times. But it was only ever just talked about. The best we got up until this point was some werewolves fighting each other, but that always happened off-page. And that's basically this entire chapter. Violent threats against Kelly, but for a bit of spice, let's have these random strangers threaten them instead. And then Kelly just violently fighting to get out of there. Okay, that's it. Off Peterson.